I'm going to go through the book first of all before we get started on making anything. So it's supposed to be an 8-inch book, but I've made the cover slightly bigger, so it is 8 inches from top to bottom, but it's 8 1/4 from side to side. And with this book as well, I've made it so the pages actually fit into the book, so there's not any leeway top and bottom, which I think really helps if you're going to be putting hinges in. It makes it quite easy to do. So you open up your book, and I've just left this side plain because there's quite a lot of sort of like chunky bits in it. What I've done here is I've got a photo set of photo mats, and they've got this closure, which is this little heart here. Okay, so you just pull that up to open it, and then you open it out like that, and then there's space for photos there. Okay, which I haven't obviously put in. I should do, really, shouldn't I? So it's got that little space for photos in there. And then you turn it over, and what you've got here is you've got a plain page just with space for photos. I was actually thinking about making this you know, sort of openable, but I didn't. But you could do, if you wanted to put more photos on here, you just simply, you know, make that as a fold open thing. But on this side,
you call that plain?
Call what plain?
The book.
Oh no, it's not got any fancy bits on here. It isn't plain at all, but it hasn't got any fancy bits. So on this side we've got a flap, and when you open the flap, that opens up, and you get this sort of pop-up hearts here, which I think that's my favourite page actually. So that's that page. Open it up here, and what you've got are some pop-up hearts that I did try sticking these down, but they don't keep stuck. With room for photo mats, so I've just put some like poppy up bits here, and we've got the, you know, the photo mat, and I, you know, put my photo mats down so that I can, you know, stick bits in and out there. And the same with these come out. I'm going to show you how to make these little hearts that you can just use as embellishments. You can either just stick them down, but they're all removable, so you can just slip them in and use them like paper clips. So I know somebody said the other day that they were going to be using them in a planner. So that's one way that you can do this. And then, you know, with these, they're just, the photo mats are just down there so that you can just pop things behind. And then you open up this page, and once again, I've got exactly the same here. So I've got my photo mats, but like I said, if you wanted more room for photos, you could just make that a flappy thing. And then on this side, what we've got here, and this is going to be a bit more difficult to show you. Now, I haven't changed, I said I was going to change this because it didn't do quite what I wanted it to do, but I've now figured out how it will do what I wanted to do. So it won't look much different. It'll just be more solid, if that makes sense, and I just couldn't be bothered to do it. So solider, yeah. So we've got all of our hearts coming out the top of our flappy box there, and then on the back we've got, because it's pop-up, and I do like pop-up waterfalls, we've just got a little waterfall here, you know, that is the space for us to, you know, put our photos on. And I just keep sticking these, because I've got them left, I just keep sticking them in places. So that's the book, and that's what we're going to make. As I said, it's going to be slightly wider. We're going to have a spine that's 1.5 inches, not 1 inch, which is what I originally did. So what we'll start off by doing is cutting out our cover. Now I'm just going to refresh this page because I know that the picture that I've got is hugely lagging behind. I'm still lagging behind, but never mind. Caroline, you'd be amazed how easy and quick it's going to be. Really going to be easy and really going to be quick. I've deliberately kept it simple. So what we're going to do first of all is, and I've completely forgotten to print out the cutting guide. Oh, sure. So would you like to do that for me, dear? Luckily I can remember what size the covers are. So actually I'm going to use this trimmer to do it. Now I've used 1500 micron board, which is 1.5 millimeters thick. It's kind of like a mid-range.
About a 16th of an inch.
A 16th of an inch. Thank you, dear. Joys of being married to a engineer. It's kind of like a mid-range chipboard, grey board. It's you know, it's not too thick and it's not too thin. So, for example, if you did the Christmas notebooks with us on Christmas Day, this is the card that we use for that, and that is really quite thin and flexible. This is the next size up. So that's 1 millimetre, 1,000 microns, that's 1.5. And then if you've made books with me with shaker pockets, then I'll tend to use this one, which is the much thicker, much more solid board, and that is 2.25 microns. But I want to use just a middle range one for this, because we need some stiffness in it. So I'm going to cut my covers, and both covers are exactly the same, obviously, and they are 8 by 8 1/4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to cut 2 covers at 8 by 8 1/4 inches. Now, I don't use my precision for cutting grey board past 1,000 microns. I don't know whether it will or not. I just don't want to chance it, to be honest with you. So I'll use my other Fiskars to do that. Or a knife. Tracy, so easy to make, honestly. Trust me, it's easy. It has to be, otherwise I wouldn't be able to make it myself. So we're cutting 2 at 8 by 8 1/4 inches. So the 8 is the height of the book. Evening, Ruth. And the 8 1/4 is that bit, the width. Yeah. The spine. Now I've changed this slightly, but this is going to be 8 inches because obviously that's the height of our book. So we need to cut that at 8 inches. And instead of 1 inch, I've added an extra 1/2 inch on. So I want to cut this at 1.5 inches, my spine. So it's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but it's going to give us just a little bit of wriggle room when it comes to putting more photos in, that sort of thing. Okay, so that is my spine and covers cut out of the grey board. Now, I'm going to use some Tyvek to put my spine on. Now, if you haven't ever used Tyvek before, this is Tyvek, and it looks just like paper and it sounds like paper, but it was actually originally from the building trade. And it's used as a membrane on houses. It's breathable, but it's waterproof, and it's great because it is super strong and doesn't tear. So when we're opening and closing our books a lot, it helps to strengthen that sort of that bending motion, I suppose. And it also, I think, I've got no scientific proof of this, but I'm not tearing it, Tracy. I'm deliberately. It is untearable, isn't it, Wendy? Yeah. No, Ellie, I'm not going to show you how untearable it is. I'm going to just leave that there. I've forgotten what I was saying now. You've thrown me. For those of you who don't know, I explained Tyvek once, told everybody it was untearable, and then proceeded to rip it in half. So I'm not doing that again because it just reduces my credibility. Mind you, not that I think that I've got any, but it reduces my credibility to nothing. So, well, we'll see. I'll think about it, Ellie. But the nice thing about Tyvek is that it doesn't rip. You have to cut it either with a knife, a scissors, or a blade. So you don't have to use it. You can put it straight onto, you can put your spine, you know, straight onto the card or to the cover. But I just like it because it gives it a bit of strength. So let me cut out the bit that I need before I try and show you that it's untearable. So, I mean, I'm just going to cut this at 8 by 5. But to be honest with you, I know, you're all horrible to me. You're all absolutely horrible to me. But you know, that's just a rough sort of a size. Right, this stuff is untearable. I can't believe I'm going to do this. Right, looks like paper, sounds like paper, feels like paper, tears not like paper because it doesn't. If this works, I'm going to be. Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this again. I don't believe it. Does this actually happen to anybody else? Or is it just me?
Oh,
I have no, that's it, my credibility is shot away. I've just...
You've just got the technique there.
Putting my trimmer away. You're all horrible and mean. Really, really mean to me. Can't believe it. Right. So, here's my Tyvek that is very strong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my spine piece. Can't believe this. Can't believe it.
Three shredded wheat.
Must be. My wheat bits, yeah. So let me find my pokey tool because I don't think I've poked a hole in this one yet. New glue. Sorry, Helen, not trying to rub it in. Let me get my pokey tool and just poke it.
It smells here.
Yes, smells here. Right. So I'm going to put some glue onto the spine piece. And I'm going to lay that in the middle of the Tyvek. Well, this Tyvek must be duff. I have had a new delivery this week. I'll have to see if I can do it with that. Okay, so I've just put my spine in the middle of the Tyvek. Now I need to make sure that I'm doing this the right way round because the 8 1/4 is the width. What are you doing?
Messy.
Why?
That's what I do.
Okay. So I need to make sure that it's my 8 1/4 piece that's that way. So if I'm going to put it that way, it's going to be too tall. See? So I'm going to put some glue onto this unrippable Tyvek.
You can't rip it if you try and rip it.
So it must be the way I manipulate it.
Yeah, if you do it like that.
Yeah. Okay. Right, so Mark's just proven that you can't rip this when you're trying to rip it. Actually, no, you can't. You're right.
It stretches.
It stretches a little bit, but it doesn't rip.
It's when you...
It's when you... I can't do it now. I've obviously only got one good tug in me. And we'll leave that there. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Just let me get you back here. So I've put some glue onto my my Tyvek, and I am going to line up my cover, and I'm going to make sure that I leave a gap between the spine and the Tyvek. Now I find it really useful to use my... Oh, you're putting me off, guys. To put my book on one of these lines on my my mat, so that I can make sure that I'm lining it up straight. But I want to leave a bit of a gap there, probably about 1/8 of an inch, just slightly over. So I'm going to put some glue on the other side. And I'm going to lay that part of the cover down too and make sure that it's all lined up and straight. Making sure that I've got my gap here as well, okay? Right. So when I turn it over, you can just use, if you haven't got any Tyvek, just use a piece of paper for this. Okay. So mine's got coffee on it. I don't know how I've managed that.
Coffee?
Yeah, probably. So that's going to be my book cover, okay? It's as simple as that. So what I want to do now is cover it, and I'm going to use A4 sized card. I'm going to cover mine in white because I like the white with the papers, but obviously you just match yours up to whatever colour you fancy. So just grab some of my nice white cardboard, and I'm going to do this in 3 stages. So I'm going to cover that with a piece there like that. I'm going to cover that with a piece over here, and then I'm going to put in the piece that goes on my spine. So I'm just assuming that I'm doing this from scratch, and that you know, people might not have made a book before, so that's why I'm you know, just going through the whole thing simply. So a little tip for you, what I do when I'm putting on my...
What was your chipboard again? Was it one...
the GSM for the card cover? Well, I use what we call 4 sheet, David, which is about 240 GSM. It's about £90 weight cardstock, but it doesn't matter if it's thinner than that. I wouldn't go any thicker, but you could well go thicker. So £80 cardstock, 200 GSM, something like that. So when I'm making albums, as you will have noticed, I like wet glue. I like wet glue because it sticks. I find that books that I've made in the past, if I've just used tape, they eventually fall to bits. But when I've used wet glue, I have found that they don't. So that is why you will always see me using wet glue. However, there are most definitely times when I would use tape, and this is one of them. Can I tear a pack of... I can tear 1 sheet, Mel, but so could you. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some double-sided tape, which miraculously isn't covered in cat hairs. And if you're new to this, sometimes when you're using card and you're folding it, you'll find that card cracks and tears and does all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So sometimes you just can't help it. No matter what you do, some card is just prone to that. But I'm going to tell you what I do to try and avoid it. So I'm going to put lots of strips of double-sided tape down my cover, but I can feel here that that is where the gap is between my spine and my cover, and I am not going to put double-sided tape over that, and I find that really helps with cracking and pulling. So I'm going to get my double-sided tape.
What paper are you decorating it with?
When we get around to decorating, which won't be this week, the papers that I've used on this book are Doodlebug Design Love Notes. I've used a pack of the 12x12 collection papers with the stickers. I've used a pack of the coordinating textured cardstock. I've used a pack of the ephemera, and I've used some of the little puffy stickers because they come with Love Notes, yeah, by Doodlebug. Yeah. So I'm just feeling where that gap is, and I'm making sure that I don't put my tape where the gap is. But I'm going to put tape all the way along the rest of my book. All I'm doing tonight in terms of decorating is I'm just going to cover the book with plain white cardstock. That's all I'm going to do.
Aren't you using your honking chunky tape?
Not tonight, no. I could do, but I'm just thinking about what people have, you know, probably got close by.
We all like to see your honky chunky.
My honking chunky tape, this one, it is quicker, but that is definitely all covered in cat hairs. But yeah, that's good. No, dear, it's Love Notes by Doodlebug Design.
Yeah, I've
You've done it the wrong way around.
I've deleted the by now.
Oh, good lad.
In the edit.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just going to assume that I'm working with people who haven't made books before, so I apologise profusely if you know all this already, but I'm sure you don't mind me rabbiting on. You should be used to it by now. Okay, so I'm adding my double-sided tape. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. This is just so that, you know, we've got a good base to work on. It has no structural purpose particularly, which is why I'm really comfortable using tape. But on the whole, for the book structure, I don't use double-sided tape. Right, now I'm going to need to put some on the spine. I'm just going to have a feel where the spine is and make sure that I don't put my tape actually on the spine gaps. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure that those are stuck down. And I'm going to do one side at a time. Hi, Lisa.
Cooking and watching.
That's what David does.
That's what he did last night. He did say his book turned out better than the food.
Oh, that's a pity. Your book was rather lovely, though.
Yes. He didn't say what the food was, though.
Yeah, what were you cooking? Because I had images of you cooking something like, I don't know, spaghetti bolognese with tomatoes. And I just know that if I do that, it's going to go everywhere. You know that too, don't you, dear?
Yes, I usually clean up after.
Yes, he does.
That's why I cook.
That is why you, well, yeah, one of the many reasons why you cook. Yes, exactly, Ellie. To avoid the crackage, don't put tape on the gappage. Yeah. I like that. Hi, Alice. Ah, now, Alice won't mind me telling you that Alice has ordered a stapler as well. I should have shares in this. Hey, does that make me an influencer?
Oh, no.
Ooh,
Lisa's
that's
having
cool.
Salad, sausages and egg.
That sounds like a good mixture to me.
We usually have mash. Sausage and mash.
Yeah, we like sausage and mash. Right, so I've taken off the double-sided tape on the, well, it doesn't matter if it's the front or the back. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lie down my cardstock so that I've got some space around it. I've probably taken off too much of the sticky, so that I can cover my book in it. And because that's just wide, I'm just gonna take a little bit off if I can find my knife.
Your knife.
I've lost a knife.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I'm going to get told off by Wendy now because I just did that straight onto my mat.
Again?
Again. So,
Mel says you're always influencer, normally bad.
I hope so. Oh, I do hope so.
What you do best.
Yeah. So I'm just going to mitre the edges of that there. Now, if this is your first book with me, I'm not a tidy crafter. In terms of the fact, well, I'm not a tidy crafter, but
Or cooker.
I don't. Yeah, thank you, dear. I don't. I don't cook.
Cooker.
Not cooker. That would make me, you know,
An appliance.
an appliance. Yeah. I'm a cook, except I'm not. Anyway, lots of people when they're crafting have things perfect and tidy. I don't tend to work like that. You are going to have to get the Cal. I tell you, it's brilliant. Yeah, the Cal stapler. It's amazing. But I like to do my ends first. So I'm just going to fold over my card and I'm just going to use my bone folder just to get a nice sharp crease on it there. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to use a little bit more double-sided tape and I'm going to pop it in the middle because that is what's going to hold my card down whilst it's drying. So I'm going back to my glue. So I'm going to put some glue on my card. And I'm going to fold that over. So now I've got a nice sharp edge down here. Now, there's any number of ways that you can fold this over now. And the way that I do it changes virtually every time I do a book. But if you do it just as it is, sometimes when you fold it over like this, you'll find that your corner will just stick out a little bit, and that's just plain annoying. So I'll maybe fold it in a bit, but that'll give me a bit of a sticky out bit. So I just tend to cut bits of it off. Actually, I'm going to use my other scissors because they're sharper. So I'm just going to cut a bit off there. Fold that down. Then fold that over so that I get a nice sharp corner crease. Okay? Little bit of double-sided tape just to hold it in place. And now my glue. to hold the whole thing together for longer. Okay, so I've got a really nice sharp corner crease there. So if I turn it over, you can see that's exactly as it should be. So now I'm going to do the same here. Just fold that in a little bit. Crease it down with my bone folder.
Cheapest you can find at the moment is $6.99.
I'm sure that's less than I paid for it. I think I paid $8.99 for it. Okay.
There's a similar looking one that's slightly cheaper.
Right, so that's that half of my book covered. All right. Now I probably shouldn't have taken that one off now because it is getting covered in cat hairs. But I'm going to do exactly the same over the other side. So this time I think I'll leave that strip on. What are you doing? Making me nervous. What are you doing?
Just watching you in there.
Why though?
Live rather than live.
Oh, I see. Now that's sticking to me. What are you doing? It's making me really nervous.
I'm just watching that.
No, I don't like it. Stop watching me immediately.
Yes, sir.
Right, so now I'm going to stick this on the other side. Get rid of all of the scissors that I seem to have lying around.
Scissors.
And let's just lie that down. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight, because we're going to cover these edges up anyway. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm not watching there.
No, don't watch. I've got a knife.
I'll go and get past this. Ready.
Right, so let's just miter the corner. And I'm going to fold that over. And do exactly what I did before. Hi, Judith. Now, normally when we'd finished the putting the covers together, we'd put the spines on. But like I said, I'm not in a position to do that just at the moment. So we'll worry about that later. So we're going to do it a bit topsy-turvy, but it doesn't actually matter. Now, if you haven't made a book before, the hinges will be, they're not hard, but they're the bit that maybe might take you the longest to get your head around, but I will walk you through that. We're going to use what they call a hidden hinge binding on this book, which once you've learnt that, you can make pretty much any book. It's not difficult or complicated. And once you've made one and it's clicked, you'll totally get how to make others in future. Got cat hair in that one. And if we ever need cat DNA for any particular reason, all we're going to have to do is take some of my books apart.
Nothing says love like cat hair.
Very true. Nearly there. All right. Okay, so that's the cover covered. Now we just need to cover the spine. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay a piece of card to cover this bit that we haven't covered, okay? So I'm going to just cut it down a bit. I'll cut it down to about 6 inches, I reckon. Might as well use this trimmer seeing as it's here, although it's probably blunt now. Oh, stupid woman. And I'm going to take off these bits, and I'm going to show you what I do to make sure that these bits stick really, really well to my book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some double-sided tape, and I'm going to run it.
Louise says hi.
Hi, Louise. Hi, have I said hello to you, Ruth? Yeah, I can imagine. And I should think they're quite long cat hairs with yours as well. So I put some double-sided tape there on either side, but as you can see, I've left a bit of a gap, because what I want to do is I want to run a bead of glue down there, because it's really important that that bit sticks to our book. So I find it's easiest to put glue on the edges like that with a bit of double-sided tape just to keep it in place. But we've got the double-sided tape on this bit of our book already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lie this down. I'm going to line it up on my mat so that I can see where I'm putting it. Give myself some space, which is always interesting. And I'm going to lie this down on top, and I'm going to try and centre it and lie it down so that it's going to hit those lines on my mat like that. So although it might not be 100% straight, it's near enough, okay? Because we're going to cover it anyway, so don't get too caught up on it. All right, so if I turn that over now and I just use my bone folder, I know that that has got a really, really good adhesion going on here, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold these over. I'm just going to make sure that I've got a nice crease going on there. I'm going to stick a little bit of double-sided tape on. And I'm going to use my glue just to make sure that it sticks permanently. Okay? Now, if you use a shorter piece of card, don't worry about that. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Joan. I was very tired this afternoon because I had a horrible scare yesterday. I don't know if I dare tell you what I did, right? This is the stupidest thing. Well, if you're in the UK, you'll know that it's tax return time. Tax has to be done. Your return has to be done by the 31st of January. And yes, I know it's the 29th of January. And I am aware that I've had a whole year to do this. But you know what? I didn't. I never do. My own fault. I have got nobody to blame but myself.
Why do yesterday what you can do tomorrow?
Exactly. So, I use an accounting software, which is absolutely brilliant. I pay every month for it. It's called QuickBooks, and it does everything for me because I've only got 10 fingers. And you know, like most people, I've got better things to do. So I just have to link it up to my bank account. I link it up to PayPal. It does all of the stuff, brings it in all automatically for me, and then I just add in any cash transactions or anything like that, right? Great, simple, sorted. The picture's gone terrible. Has it with you?
Yeah.
No, I still haven't done it, Ellie, and I'm going to tell you why I haven't done it. The reason I haven't done it is I noticed yesterday morning, well, I've noticed this before yesterday morning, but for some reason I've got 2 PayPal accounts attached to my account, and one of them hasn't updated for a few months, and I should really only have one, and I don't understand it. But I can delete this PayPal account, but I'm thinking, if I delete it, does that mean I'm going to lose a whole load of transactions? So I'm thinking, delete it, but don't do it until you finish your tax return. Just leave it. It's fine. You've gone through every single transaction. You know all the transactions are right. Don't touch it. And I've been telling myself this for weeks. Don't touch it. So what did I do yesterday morning? I sat down, government website already, to do my tax return, and I thought, I wonder what happens if I delete this connection. Well, I can tell you what happens if you delete that connection. If you delete that connection, you have the worst several hours of your life trying to figure out why thousands of transactions have just disappeared. Because they've disappeared. And where I was... I know, I don't know what keeps doing that. Oh, it's gone all right now. Where I was looking like, you know, I was vaguely, you know, doing okay, suddenly I'm doing terribly, absolutely terribly. And I'm thinking, this ain't right. So I'm having a minor panic. I've never had to contact...
I'm glad I was at work.
I'm glad you were at work as well. I'm going to contact QuickBooks, but it says, don't, you know, if you delete, it's gone for good. We can't do anything about it. But, you know, I've deleted it and my transactions have gone and it's terrible. So anyway, I contacted QuickBooks and I don't know, I did it, you know, like an online chat, and I don't know who the person was that I spoke to. I suspect it was somebody called Andre. But they are now my favouriteest person in the world because they actually got all my second favourite person in, fourth favourite person in the world, because they got all my transactions back. And I spent yesterday in a little bit of a tizzy, as you can imagine. So the moral of this story is, when you keep telling yourself not to do something, don't do it. My book is covered. I'm going to put it to one side. I am not going to fold it because I'm going to let it coagulate. So put that to one side until next week. So I've just hit the camera. So as you can imagine, yesterday was a little bit fraught. So I didn't even post yesterday. Right, let's cut some pages. Book's got 4 pages, 2 with flips. I was extremely lucky, Joan. Extremely lucky. Because it was nearly disaster time. Righty-ho. Okay, so let's cut our base pages. This isn't right. I can already read this and tell you that this is not right. I don't know what I was doing here. So yeah, anyway, so my head is full of numbers and not the right ones. So I know this isn't right. So cut 2 at 8 by 8 inches. You wouldn't do... Right, I want you to cut 2 at 8 by 7 and 7/8 of an inch. I mean, you can cut them at 8 by 8, but you will have to trim it down a little bit. So I guess actually, no, you do. This isn't actually that far wrong, because you're going to cut... You're going to cut 2 at 8 by 7 and 7/8 and 2 by 8 by 8. We'll just do that because that's what I've said and it's easy, and we can always trim it down afterwards. It'll do for now.
Near.
It's near enough.
Ryan said, I bet you needed a stiff drink.
I did, but I didn't have one.
You did look a bit dishevelled when I got home.
Yeah, it wasn't a good day.
Leave you alone for 8 or 9 hours.
And look what happens. But the thing was, I couldn't believe it because for weeks I'd been telling myself, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then on the day I need it, I thought, do it. Why? Anyway. Right. Then we're going to cut 2 at 9 by 8.5 inches, in theory. I really hope you're not working along with me, because whether or not this is going to... That's not going to work. 9 by 8.5 inches. That's not going to work out of a piece of A4, is it?
No, is it?
It should be 9 by 8 inches. No, it isn't. Right, we're going to cut 2 at 9 by... No, because it's not going to help. I must have used 12 by 12. Right, definitely 2 9 by 8s. Definitely. Hang on, just let me have a look. I must have used 2 12 by 12 pieces. I must have done. There's no other explanation. Which I haven't got up here.
You want me to go and get some, do you?
I think I might need you to, yeah.
Where is it?
It's, I'll tell you what, it's down by the sofa actually. There should be some white 12 by 12s in a...
That you've packed?
Yeah. Yeah, so you might need some 12 by 12 for this. I don't know why I didn't figure that out before, really. Hang on, I've lost you all again. So yeah, I think you are gonna need a couple of sheets of 12 by 12. I'm lost where I am now. Right, so we've cut the 4 at 8 by 8 or 8 by 7 and 7/8, something like that. We've cut 2 at 9 by 8. And now we're going to cut 2 at 9 by 8.5, which will have to be out of 12 by 12 sheets. Yeah. So while Mark's finding that, we want to cut 2 at 7.25 inches by 8. So 2 at 7.25 by 8. Thank you, dear. So I've just done 2 at 7.25 by 8. And now I'm just going to go back a bit. And I'm going to do those 2 that were 9 by 8.5. We've just cut 2 that are 8 by 7.25, and now I'm going to cut the 2 that are 9 by 8.5. Which we'll probably find out in a minute. I've still measured wrong. Right, so working our way down this list. Oops. We've cut 2 at 8 by 8 or 4 at 8 by 8 or 7 and 7/8. It doesn't matter. We've cut 2 at 9 by 8.5. Those are the 2 that I've just cut out of the 12 by 12. We've cut 2 that are 9 by 8 inches. You can cut that out of a piece of A4. And we've cut 2 at 8 by 7.25 inches. Okay. Now we want to cut 2 at 9 by 7 3/4 inches. And we can cut those out of A4. So these are 9 by 7 3/4.
8.5 or 8, but I don't know which one she's talking about. Because there is 1 8. 1 8 now.
Yeah, yeah, which one? What am I cutting?
9 by 7 3/4, is it?
Yeah, 9 by 7 3/4. We might have been better doing this bit by bit because these are the flappy bits for the side. Maybe we should have left those. So I'm cutting 2 that are 9 by 7 3/4. You might want to hold your horses actually and not work along with me at the moment.
People are doing.
I know. And then you can use some of your other bits that you've got left over here and cut at 8 by 2 1/8, which I know is right. I absolutely guarantee this bit's right. So 9 by 2 1/8. 8 by 2 1/8. Why did I say 9? Eight by 2 1/8. Okay. Right. I'll put my trimmer away. And I'm going to put these bits of card away, but I'm not going to throw them away because you never know when they might be useful for things like photo mats and stuff. So what I'm going to do now is get my trimmer. Look, I found my proper thingy that I kept losing, and I'm going to work my way backwards. That's brave, telling people to look at the cutting guide if they get lost.
What you cut.
Right, so I'm going to start off by scoring these 2 small bits, which were 2 1/8 by 8 inches. Now we're going to score first of all on the 2 1/8 inch side, and when I say that, what I mean is the 2 1/8 of an inch has to be at the top of your board. Okay, if I'd said score on the 9 inch side, then we would have put it at the 8 inch side, we would have put it that way around. Okay, so I'm going to score on the 2 1/8 inch side, and I'm going to score at 1 inch, and I'm going to score at 1 1/8 of an inch. So what I've got is 2 wings and a narrow gusset. There you go, Ellie. I'm talking about gussets again. Yeah. Okay, so I've got 1 inch here, 1/8 of an inch there, and 1 inch there. All right, and I'm going to do exactly the same on both pieces. So I'm going to score at 1 inch and 1 1/8 of an inch. So I've got that very thin gusset there. I don't know how well you can see. It's not showing up very well on my screen here. Okay, so I've got 1 inch and then 1/8 of an inch and then 1 inch. So I've got that very, very narrow gusset. Okay, Stacey, all you've missed is me doing everything wrong. So it's fine. I'm glad you're late. And tearing Tyvek again. Yeah. So the next 2 pieces that I've got, which ones are these? 9 by 7 3/4. So I'm going to score on the 9 inch side, which means I've got the 9 inches at the top. I'm going to score at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to score at 8 1/2 inches. Okay, I'm going to scoot that around 90 degrees. So now I'm just going to score on the 7 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch. So what I've got is a piece of card with U-shaped scores on it. Now, just to make sure that I'm right, where's my book? Where's the book gone? Oh, it's here. I'm just going to check it and just make sure that it is right. Yes, it is. Phew. And because I've got 2 of these, I'm going to do that again. So I've got a piece here that's 9 by 7 3/4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to score on the 9-inch side. So I've got 9 inches at the top. And I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. And I'm going to score at 8.5 inches. I'm going to scoot that round 90 degrees. So I'm now scoring on the 7 3/4 inch side. And I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. So what I've got here are 2 pieces that have got this U-shaped score lines on. Okay, right, so what piece have I got next? This is the piece that I cut next was 9 by 8.5. Yeah, these are our ordinary base pages. So I'm going to score on the 9-inch side. So I've got my 9 inches at the top. I'm going to score at 1/2 inch and at 8.5 inches. Scoot it round 90 degrees, and I'm going to score on the 8.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. So once again, what I've got is that page with the U-shaped score marks. But if you think about it, what we've got here in between the score marks is our page, which is 8 inches square. I'm not doing as badly as I thought I was. Right, so same piece, 9 by 8.5 inches. I'm going to score on the 9-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 8.5 inches. Scoot it round, and I'm going to score on the 8.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Okay, right, I think we're nearly there. What have I still got left? So I've got this piece, which is 8 by 8. I don't need to score that. That's 7 1/4 by 8. I don't need to score that. And then those bit of the 8, yeah. So I don't need to score those. So what I've got left to score is 2 pieces that are 8 by 9. Yes, that sounds right to me. And I'm going to want to score on the 9-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 8.5 inches. So this has just got 2 score marks on it, okay? The tie that came in when we made our spines, Louise, you'll have to scoot back to the beginning and watch it. I'm not going to tell you what happened. So we're scoring on the 9-inch side at, I'm going to go over these again, all right, just so everybody's clear. I'm going to score at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to score at 8.5 inches on the 9-inch side. All right, so what I've got, let's do this against the cutting guide. All right, so we've done the covers, we can cross that off. Okay, let's cross that off because we don't need to worry about that. So what I've got here is I've got, these are unscored. So I've got, basically I've got 4 at 8 by 8. If you cut them 8 by 7 and 7/8 of an inch, that's just fine, because this 8 by 8 one here, we're going to have to cut down at some point in a minute, but I just didn't want to do that too soon. But it doesn't matter if we do. It's one of those funny ones. So I've got 4 that are essentially 8 by 8. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. They have got no scores on them, so I'm going to put those to one side, and I'm going to tick off that I've done those. Okay. Cut 2 at 9 by 8.5 inches. These are the pages. Let me just measure, make sure. 8.5 by 9. These pages have got score marks on 3 sides at 1/2 inch. So we've got like a U-shaped page. Okay, so we've got those. So we're going to put those to one side. We've got 2 at 9 by 8 inches. So these have just got parallel score marks at 1/2 inch on the 9-inch side. So in between here, what we're going to have is that 8 by 8 size. Okay. All right. Dead easy. Got those. And then we want to cut, we've got 2 that are 8 by 7 1/4 inches, and they are unscored. Now I've cut that. I haven't cut that one. I've only cut one of them. So just let me cut that down. So I've got 2 here that are unscored that are 8 inches by 7 1/4 inches. Okay, all right, so I've got those, and then I've got these 2 pieces left over which have got the 3 score marks there, but they're slightly smaller than the ones that we did before, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. So they're slightly smaller, but we've got the 3 score lines, and they're 9 by 7 3/4 inches, and then we've got these 2 funny bits with the narrow gussets. Okay, so if I show you which bit goes where in the book, it will make much better sense to you. So what we're doing is we're making pages. Okay, so this first page has got this flap on it, as has this page over here. Okay, so all 4 base pages are the same size. They're all 8 by 8, but 2 of the pages have got these funny flaps on. Okay, so what we've cut are our base pages, which are 8 by 8, 4 of those, but we've also cut these flaps, and we're going to attach these flaps to the 8 by 8 page using these. Okay, so now we're going to put that together and it will all become clear. So what I want you to do first of all is get your 2 pieces, the biggest 2 pieces that you've got, which are 9 by 8.5 inches. Yeah, 9 by 8.5 inches, and these are the ones that have got the 3 score marks. Now in the corner here of this page, you can see that what we've got here is a little square, and we need to get rid of it. Okay, and we're going to do that by something that Mel loves, which we call kinky mitering. I'll tell you what with flaps, gussets and a bit of kinky mitering, this papercraft mini book making business is quite something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off, because we're going to fold these. But if I cut it straight across, what I find is that sometimes when I'm folding that over, I still get a bit of an overlap, and I don't like a lumpy overlap. So we're going to kink it a bit. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip up to where those score lines intersect. But instead of going straight across, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to just angle them slightly differently, and I'm going to cut it off so it's not straight across, it's got a bit of a kink in it. And that is what we refer to as kinky mitering. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, so I'm cutting off that square where the score lines intersect, and we've gone over time already, but we're going to carry on regardless because we're there now. I'm going to do the same over this side, and I'm just going to cut off those squares, and I've got my kinks there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold on those score lines so that I'm going to have 3 flaps like that. This is our 8 by 8 page. I hope this is all starting to make better sense to you now. Okay, now these 2 pages that we're making now are the pages in the book that don't have the flaps. So it's these 2 pages, this page and this page. Okay, that's what we're making right now. These have got flaps. We'll make those in a minute. Okay, all right, so I'm going to get my bone folder And I'm just going to burnish that to make sure that I've got a really good sharp crease, because that makes all the difference when I come to put my page together, to make it look really sharp and professional. Something needs to look professional around here, because I sure don't. Are you guys all right to carry on?
Yeah.
I'm not asking you.
Oh, I thought you told me.
I do tell you. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Well, you don't usually take any notice.
What?
What? Exactly. So, do you remember those bits that we cut out that were 8 by 8 or thereabouts? What we're going to do now is we're going to make these into the back of our pages. This strengthens the page, makes it a little bit thicker, and it's a better base for us to work on. And it also helps when we come to put our pages on our binding, okay?
Everyone's too drunk,
I think they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that that slots into the page like that, okay? Now, because I cut this 8 by 8, I've got a little bit of an overlap here, and I can cut that off now, or I can cut it off after I've glued it. I'm going to cut it off after I've glued it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that all sits nicely in there. I've got my page, which is unscored, the 8 by 8, and I'm going to pop that inside those flaps and glue it down. Now, you might have to trim yours down a bit, because what you don't want is any sort of, like, if you're using a piece that's too big, it'll bow out. All right, it won't fit in there properly. It's going to bow out, and you're not going to have a flat page. So you might need to trim it down, okay? So I said 8 by 8, but it might be 8 by 7 7/8. It might be 7 7/8 by 7 7, whatever. You just need to trim. Yeah, it might be. You just need to trim it down a little bit. So I'm going to put some glue onto the inside of those flaps like that. I'm going to take that page, make sure it all sits tidy. Pardon me.
All right.
And I'm going to fold over those flaps like that, and make sure that that's glued down. So what I've got here is a page. Hi Valerie. I've got a page, and it's got a hole in one side, okay? It is really important that you have a hole in one side, otherwise you won't get it onto your hinges. So because that's got a slight overhang, I'm just going to trim that off. So now what I've got is a perfectly sized page. So it's 8 by 8 inches. It's got 2 sides to it, double sides, with the flaps on the outside, but it's got a hole there, and that's how we're going to attach it to our hinges. And we need to do that with both of these, okay? So first of all, I'm just going to make sure that my back page fits in, which it does. So now I'm going to glue that in. Is this all making sense for people who haven't made books before? I hope so.
Jacqueline says yes.
Okay, good, good.
So we've got this one.
Well, that's good. It's obviously not been drinking enough, if it's making sense.
Or do you have to drink too much for it
I don't know. Right, I'm just going to trim that off.
She said she's sorry, too busy having a laugh.
I'm glad somebody is.
Mel's doing the shopping.
Oh God, we need to do ours. So what I've got now is I've got 2 pages made with a hole in one side, okay, like that. And these are these 2 pages here, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to make this page with the flap, okay? So, it is a right sesh. What I want you to do is I want you to grab the 2 pieces of card that we have cut that have got the parallel score lines. So one at the top and one at the bottom, okay?
I've got one on the left and one on the right.
Don't confuse me. So this has just got 2 score lines, one at the top and the bottom, okay? So we're going to fold those over. And we're going to burnish them.
With your boner?
With my boner.
You did the one.
I don't know, I could use my big one.
I would.
Shall I use my big one?
I like to use your big
Okay, I'll use my big boner.
boner.
That isn't straight. I haven't even folded it straight. How can you not fold something straight?
Oh, we've got video evidence.
Okay, so now what I need to do is get these other 2 pieces that were 8 by 8, and I need to make sure that they fit in here. Now, prime example, that if I try to push that in between the flaps there, it's going to bow out and it's not going to be straight. So I need to cut that down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my trimmer and I'm going to cut a little bit off, about 1/8 of an inch or so. Okay? And I'm just going to try and slot that back in and make sure that that fits, which it does now. It'll fit perfectly side to side because that is 8 inches and we don't need to change that. But it now fits in top to bottom without gaping. Okay? So that is why I suggested that we might need to cut one side down to 7 7/8. Well, I didn't really need to put that in because I think that's where I've confused matters. I don't normally. I just tell you to cut them at 8 inches square or something. So let's make sure that's in. And I'm going to fold those 2 flaps down. Glue that. Oh, not like that. And now what I've got is a page, but it's got 2 open ends, as opposed to the other that just had 1. Okay, so let's make sure with the other one that that fits. Yep, snug, but it's near enough. Put the glue on the inside of the flap, put that second part of the page in, fold it over, just burnish it to make sure that I've got a good adhesion. Now, interestingly, these 2 pages are the same size, but this has got 2 openings and that's just got 1 because this page needs to have that extra little flap attached to it. And as you can see, this flap is slightly shorter than that page. This is 7 1/4 inches, but we want to make sure that we've got a nice edge on it, so that's what we're going to do now. So we are going to take our last 2 scored pieces and we're going to kinky mitre. Hold on, I've lost you all again. We're going to kinky mitre, so I'm going to snip up to where those score lines intersect, and I'm just going to change the angle of my scissors and just snip off that corner so it's not straight across. It's got a bit of a kink in it. Okay, exactly like we did on those first pages. Oh, not my bin over. So I'm going to fold those.
Rizwana says hello.
Hi Rizwana. I've lost my whole thing now. Done it again. I need to be a bit more careful when I'm folding on the score lines. And I'm just going to burnish that and make sure I've got a nice sharp crease. Okay. So that should be 7 1/4 inches. Phew, it is. Seems I do know what I'm doing after all. That's a miracle. Okay. So now I've got 2 pieces left, which are these pieces, which are 8 by 7 1/4. So I need to first of all make sure it fits in. And I can tell that if I try and fit that in there, I'm going to have it bowed out, which is not what I want. Okay, so I'm going to cut those down a little bit. And I'm going to cut them down on the 8-inch side. I'm just going to snip a little bit off. So now, when I slip that in there, it should fit, which it does. Now, once again, it's a little bit long on that side. I'm not worried because I can snip that off when I've glued it. But we'll need to cut that down as well. So, I'm going to just put a little bit of glue here. Glue that down in exactly the same way we did the original 3-sided pages. I'm just going to cut off that little bit of excess. And now I'm on to the final bit. So I'm just going to check that that fits in there nicely. Yeah, a little bit of glue. Now, if you're new to making books and you're thinking, okay, I've got some big gaps here where these don't meet, I don't want you to worry about that. That isn't even slightly straight. I don't want you to worry about that because it's not going to show once we put our pattern paper on at all. Most of my books look like that underneath, and you'd never ever know.
I do.
No, you don't.
Know what?
Exactly. Right, okay, so I'm just going to trim that little bit of excess off. So now what we need to do is attach those two bits together. So what I've got is I've got my page that is 8 by 7 1/4, and I've got my page which is 8 by 8 but has the openings in each end. Now these bits, the bit with the 1/8 of an inch gusset. What I want you to do is I want you to just take off a bit of that inch wing, not the gussety bit, but the inch wing. So what I've got here is I haven't touched that 1/8 of an inch where the gusset is. I've just removed the card up to those score lines, okay? So just remove those a little bit. Oh, not even slightly straight. You're not going to see them, so it doesn't matter that they're not straight. Then I want you to just fold. So what you've got here is, we're going to use this as a connector to connect our pages together, but it's going to have that little bit of a gusset on it, so that the page won't sit straight because, or flat, because we need to have a little bit of room in it because we've got our pop-up bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, which is the 8 by 8 page, the bit with the two bits that open up, and for me, I'm going to lie it down so that I've got the bits with the flaps pointing upwards, okay? So I'm going to just pop this bit with the gusset into here, into this end, just to make sure that it fits before I start gluing anything. And I'm just going to slip it up to the point where that first score line is, okay? So you can see that what I've got is I've got my page, I've just added in this hinge with the 1/8 of an inch gusset up to there. Now that is marginally too long, and I'm talking less than 1 millimetre, but I don't want it like that, so I'm just going to trim it off so that when I know, well, yeah, I can't think of it in inches, it's less, it's about less than a 16th. So now what I've got is I've got this hinge in, I've got my flaps pointing upwards, and I've just put this hinge in up to where that gusset is. So that gusset will then fold over like that. So that's going to form sort of like a hinge, okay? And we're going to glue the page, the other bit, on like that. So we've got our bit that folds over, but we've got our little gusset. So this page, this bit of the page is going to attach up to that score mark. So we've got the 1/8 of an inch gusset here, and I've got the flaps all on the same side, okay? So now I know that that fits, I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to put it on both sides of that sort of hingey thing.
The flap.
The flap, no, it's not a flap, it's more of a hinge. Hinge with the gusset. On both sides up to where that score line is, okay? And I'm going to slip it into one of the openings of that page up to that first score line, and I'm going to glue that down so that I've essentially, what I've done is I've closed up one of the openings on that page, because I've got glue on both sides of that piece of card. So that has now closed that page, that part of the page up, okay? This is still open, but that's closed. So I'm going to put some glue on this side now, not on the gusset bit, that needs to be unglued. Your gusset needs to be unsticky, ladies. But I'm putting glue on both sides of that wingy hingy bit. And I'm going to slip that onto this other piece, which is 8 by 7 1/4. Up to that score mark there. Okay, and I'm going to close that page up so that when I turn that over now, what I've got is a page that's got nearly 1 inch here, well 3/4 of an inch, but it's on an 1/8 of an inch gusset, okay? Is that all right? Is that making sense? It's actually really easy. I'm probably making it sound a whole lot more difficult than it is, all right? So that's how we get our flappy page. And we're going to do exactly the same on the other side as well. So what I've got here is my 8x8 page that has got the 2 openings. And it doesn't matter which way round you do this because we haven't decorated anything, so it doesn't matter. And I've mitered, and I'm just going to slip that in to make sure that it fits before I glue it down. Now that side does fit, okay? So I'm going to put glue on both sides of this hingey bit up to that first score line, the first score line of my gusset, because we're not putting glue on our gussets. And I'm going to stick that in like that, okay? So I've enclosed that end of that page. So I've got my flaps up here. I've got my hinging. I've got my 1/8 of an inch gusset here. This is my page, which is 8 by 7 1/4, okay, with the hole. I'm going to just make sure that that fits in there like that, which it does, up to that score mark.
What?
I'm good. Hey, what do you mean, what?
You said mark.
No, I didn't. Oh, I said score mark.
I thought you were talking to
No, I wasn't talking to you.
It says one, please.
I'm going to slip that on up to that score line. And now I've got my other page. So in the book, what we'll have is our first page, which has got that flap. Then we've got our plain page. Okay. Then we've got another plain page. And then we've got our page with the flap. And those are our 4 pages in our book. Okay, so we've got 2 with the flaps and 2 without. So what we've done tonight is an awful lot. We have made our cover like this, and we've made our 4 internal pages. So next week what we're going to do is we're going to start decorating up and making the elements that kind of pop up on the page. Now I think it's going to take a little, we're not going to get this done for Valentine's Day, I'll be brutally honest, we're not realistically at all. But we'll get through it probably. If we do an element a week, we should be all right. So before we go, has anybody got any questions? I know it's been a long class tonight. Stop talking about sweets. Honestly, this is because I haven't been watching you. What have you been doing?
Nothing, I'm just following.
Don't encourage them. For those of you that are still seriously doing this class, are we happy? Are we okay? Or are you thinking, for goodness sake, I don't have a clue what you've done and I'm confused? Okay? If you haven't got a clue what we're doing and you're confused,
Sally's managed to follow.
Ask Sally how to do it. No, seriously. If you're fine, if you're not fine and you've got questions, I'm just ignoring. I'm ignoring.
Tell people now.
No, wrong group.
Yeah, wrong group.
Don't confuse me. Message me or put something in the group and I will help wherever I can. It's probably an awful lot easier than I've made it sound. The cutting guide miraculously is right, which is a real miracle. But if you're stuck, I don't want you to sort of, if you're new to this, I don't want you to think I'm giving up now. This is, this is not me. This is too hard. It really isn't. And that's why I'm here. So if you're stuck, you're despondent or whatever, please, please, please tell me. I don't want anybody to think that they can't do this, because you so can. I promise you, you can do this. So if you're stuck, just ask. And I will help after I've finished doing my tax return. Right, okay guys, so we're back here 7:30 next Friday, and we will start decorating. We'll do that first page with the heart pull-outy bit, and I'll see you next Friday. All right, so take care everybody. Message me if you want
tomorrow?
me. What's next Friday?
Tomorrow.
No.
Feels
Tomorrow
like it.
what?
Feels like it.
Oh. I'll see you next Friday. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.